students in a music college that are here because your parents made you go. No, I don't want you going to medical school. You've got to be a musician. So this graduation today is an important recognition of your accomplishments, but it's not goodbye. We wish you every success and happiness you seek, but know that you will always be a part of our wonderful community of artists, educators, and friends at your alma mater, McNally Smith College of Music. I told you the story of two guitar teachers that started a studio that became McNally Smith College of Music. And now I want to introduce them to you, two men whose vision, tenacity, and perseverance has made it possible for all of us to be here today. So please recognize the founders of this college, Jack McNally and Doug Smith.
I think that the life of an artist is one of constant self-renewal and intrinsic discovery. And I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to give that up ever. I don't want to walk through life without my soul, and the stage is my soul. I come alive nowhere else like I do when I'm performing and doing what I love, and I'm willing to bet you all feel the same way about what you love. Steve Jobs said, "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary." Everything else is secondary. I would repeat that quote until the end of time if it meant that it could resonate in your hearts. Be bold. Be brilliant. Be open-minded and always look for an opportunity to learn something from every situation you find yourself in, because it's almost always there. I feel so blessed to have been able to spend the last 4 years of my life in this building and with all of you. I absolutely cannot wait to hear about all the stunning and amazing things you'll be accomplishing in the years to come. I leave you with this quote from C.S. Lewis: "There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind." Thank you so much, and congratulations.
It's always important to remember that no matter how terrifying that next verse is to write, no matter how terrifying it is to create the next movement of your life, life is going to keep on going. It's going to keep on turning. No matter how much we want to quit, no matter how weird that 5-chord feels. It's just, we want to get to 1 so bad. We have to remember that landing on that 1 chord will make us feel so good. And we're at that 1 chord right now. We didn't choose it for fame or money or glamour. It's just music because we did it for us. We do it because it is us. We do it because we need it. We need it to live. We do it because we live for feeling and knowing that we chose the right thing, that we did what we wanted to do. We did it. At the end of our song, at the end of our symphony, years down the road, we'll look back and smile at all the times that we wanted to quit and we didn't.
I got a lot of notes here, and I'm just going to throw them away. I had this prepared speech, probably over-prepared, and I figured if I just speak from my heart, it would probably be better. I think the hardest part and the most challenging thing about growing up and becoming a human being is finding where you belong in the world. Most people never find it in their lives, finding a way that you can contribute, that you can express yourself, hopefully make a living. That's the hardest thing, I think. And what we have in common is, just like it found me, it found you. And I call it, you have your special purpose in life, and I congratulate you about that. And that's the greatest thing, and I know your parents want you to be happy. And I think that's the most important thing that you can have in your life. And everyone talks about the music business. The music business is shit. you know, my peers, you know, where I came from, I lived in the best time of the music business. It was the golden age in studios. People were selling millions of records. An idiot like me could go out and make a lot of money and travel the world. I had all these opportunities. You know, it was like, it was the greatest thing. But the truth is, even in the best of times, it was impossible to become successful as a musician, as an artist. Art, you know, good luck being an artist. You're gonna get beaten down. It's always been that way, and it remains that way. So, screw it, who cares? Here's the idea, here's what you do. You have an opportunity to express yourself in a way, and to create beauty in the world. And, you know, music is the international language, blah, blah, blah. How many times have you heard that? The truth is, music is the voice of angels. I gotta play you something, you know, as long as I'm here. It's about music, right? Let's see if I can find it, and hopefully you can hear it. For me, this is what it's about.
Oh yeah.
Get to the chorus. All right, I gave you 10 minutes. At the end of the day, that's what you do. You know, there's this song about the rubber band man. Why is it so great? It moves us. It makes you want to shake your booty. It means everything. It changes your mood. And if you can do that, you've got everything. I wanted to speak individually. I know there's some graduates that are involved in composition. Writing songs is the bedrock of everything that we do. You know, let's not talk about the business. Let's talk about, you know, human emotion, you know, and the turn of a phrase, how important it is, and how impossibly difficult it is. You know, I've worked with the greatest writers in the world. You know, Elton John claims he writes a song in 10 minutes. He doesn't talk about the 10 days he's sitting there waiting for those radio waves to come from Mars to give him the song, right? The melody. So, you know, you people that have graduated in composition, you writers, it's the bedrock of everything you do. And let's just forget about the business. Let's just talk about the art and the soul and the science of making music. You musicians, you know, I envy you so much. Maybe I'll bore you and tell you my story a bit, but you work so hard to do that, and you know, in the performance part of it, you know, and the idea that you start something that's impossible, seemingly impossible to do, and you're able to make it possible and effortless, you know, and make your emotions speak through an instrument. That's unbelievable, the way to do that. And we know, you should realize how hard that is and how much work that is. I guess you got that practice gene from your parents, right? It's a special thing. I have a really good friend who's just a fine guitar player, and I went to him and I said, and he practices all the time, probably 8 hours a day, every day. And he's at the top of his game, plays with big groups, travels the world, makes millions of dollars. Well, maybe hundreds of dollars. And I said, that must be a great thing. But he said, well, it's really not the healthiest thing, but I'm compelled to do it. So that part's in your DNA. And then there's music business majors. Did they have a course here in cheating, screwing, and lying to people? Anybody take that? No, I didn't think they did. Well, maybe there was a tradition of that in the music business. But now, you know, you have an opportunity to have integrity and to represent artists. Artists aren't the best at representing themselves at all. They never have been. You just can't, you know, you're busy with your art. And I want to talk about teamwork. You know, the way a lot of music is made today is by groups of people, teams. You know, they call them writing teams, and they're all over the studios, all over Los Angeles and New York and the major places, and they create. And there might be somebody there that can do beats and drummers and somebody that's a lyricist and another person that sings really great, and then another person who's a technologist and is really good with computers and putting those things together. But the biggest part of that team is the person that knows how to do the business. You know the 3 rules of being a musician, don't you? Get paid, remember to remind yourself to get paid, remember to remind yourself to remember to get paid. Well, you guys that are in the business, that's your job. And your job is to represent the artist and to maximize anything and make sure that the business is done. It's really important, and I learned this from a mentor, that you have to run your career as if it's a business. Things get tight. Early on, I had a mentor, his name was Bruce Swinine, probably one of the greatest recording engineers that ever lived. He recorded and mixed all of Michael Jackson's big hits, and coincidentally, he ran it as a business and was able to negotiate a piece of the sales. So he's living in a big ranch in Florida in his older age instead of living in a box, downtown. But he implored me to run your career as a business, and I did. Producers and engineers. You know what's wrong with recording engineers? Everybody else. You're the guys that are too dumb for school and too cool for life, but you found this thing. I'm one of you. You're the ones I love. You're the ones with the most heart. My mantra going into work every day, and it has been from the beginning as an engineer, and I've had a chance, I've produced a lot of records, but my greatest success has been as an engineer. And I don't hold the candle to the talent and the ability and the education, the passion that you guys have. But my mantra was always to be open, honest, and giving, and if I could do that, as anything can happen day, and it happens to be true. I always regarded the studio as a place like my home. People were coming into my home, and I made sure that the lighting was right, the temperature was right, and the cables were run right, and create an environment that people wouldn't be afraid to fail. Art is based on failure. You're going to fail 10,000 times, and it's designed to beat you down. Cierra talked about thinking about quitting from time to time. If you haven't thought about quitting, you ain't doing shit, man, because it's that hard. And I'm not talking about hard about making money and making a living, but hard digging down deep and getting the best in yourself, best out of yourself. When I can play the spinners, I compare that to the work that I do, and frequently I feel like quitting because I'm nowhere near what that is. I'll tell you my beginning, how I found it, and maybe to help illustrate the different paths you can get to become successful to do it. I was going to college. I took guitar lessons when the Beatles came out. It changed my life. Took guitar lessons, piano lessons, drum lessons, played in bands, loved music. My first earliest memory was hearing Bill Haley and the Comets, Don't Knock the Rock. And I remember what the radio looked like, my very first memory of that. I never thought I would have a career in music. And when I was going to college, I was expected to. Not too good of a student. But my senior year of college, I came home and I had some friends that had a band, and I had played with them in high school and a little bit in college. And they asked me, they were going on the road, they got a record deal, and I knew how to drive a truck, that I want to drive a truck and schlep their gear. Actually, they said, hey, you want to? And I went, okay. And here it was. By the way, which reminds me, always say yes to everything, even though you're challenged. I said yes to coming here and speaking to you, and I was about hyperventilating and really regretted it. But now that we're doing it, we're about halfway through. It's going to be okay. A few weeks into it, the sound man didn't show up. And hey Ed, guess what? You're mixing the band tonight. Oh, okay. Well, I did it. Unfortunately, the technology was kind of rudimentary, and I sort of figured it out, but I didn't do a very good job because no one's born knowing how to do this. You learn by trial and error. A lot of trial, a lot of error. You probably have to fail every which way to find the way that works. And it could take a long time. So I started doing that, and it was kind of interesting, and it was kind of fun, and I was accepted to law school. I was supposed to go to law school in the fall. And later in the summer, they went into a studio and invited me down. I'd never been in a studio. I didn't imagine that studios existed. I took the music for granted. And when I walked in the studio, it chose me. The light went off, and I knew at that moment that that's what I was going to do with my life. And nothing was going to stop me. That's where I was supposed to be. My parents weren't too happy about that. So instead of going to law school, I enrolled in a technical school to learn electronics, see how transistors work and ICs worked. And I finally learned algebra after not being able to learn it in high school and college. Ohm's law was meaningful, because it applied to what I was doing. I was in Chicago, and there were a handful of studios in Chicago. And I made it my job. I went to every studio and knocked on every door in Chicago in the studios, and was turned down everywhere. Talk about, beating down your dreams and your hopes. But I made it my job that every month I made the round of every studio. I'd steal up my courage and go and ring the bell and go in and not be hired, be rejected. For 3 years I did it, every month. 3 years. In the meantime, I installed swimming pools, worked in gas stations, sold garden supplies, did whatever I had to do. But was still, humping gear and working for some bands and, getting some experience that. But after 3 years, I walked into a studio, Paragon Studios in Chicago. It was kind of famous then. They were doing jingles during the day, and Ohio Player records and Styx, and Gene Chandler, a lot of R&B records, which I came from Chicago, which was, where my heart was. And they hired me as an apprentice engineer, and I started the next day. And I had to show up at 5 in the morning and clean the bathrooms. And I worked really hard. I didn't go home. And after about 2 weeks, I got a promotion, and they gave me a brush. So, it's true. But I was where I needed to be, and I was just delighted. I think I might have been making $1.75 an hour, I think, there. But I was the happiest guy in the world, and I didn't go home for at least a year once I got hired at the studio. They couldn't get me to leave, but cleaning bathrooms, polishing headphones, hair products were big then, so all the headphones had a lot of goop on them. Served your apprenticeship. But you got a chance to sit behind people that probably invented a lot of gear that you were using, but were real masters of what they did and had been doing it a long time. And I just paid attention, and I hung in there. I was still making, maybe I worked my way up to $2 an hour. And I worked there for 4 years. And then I heard something on the radio, and I heard this song with guitars I'd never heard like that before. And it really knocked me out. And it was this band Boston, and I got the record, and I looked at the back. And I saw that they had worked in a studio in Los Angeles. And I said to my girlfriend, we're going to Los Angeles. And she said, let's go. And I think I had $110 in my pocket. And we loaded up the truck, and we moved to Beverly. We drove to California. And I went through the Billboard. At that time, they had the Billboard directory of recording studios. And I started at the back. I started with the W's, and there was a studio called Westlake Studios. And I got my courage up, and I went and knocked on the door. And they hired me on the spot. And you know why they hired me? It's little things, that change a lot of things. Well, the studio manager that hired me, I was in the kitchen and had a cup of coffee, and because she told me later that I rinsed out and washed my coffee cup and put it back, and that's why I got the job, not for anything that I knew. Simple human kindness. A little courtesy goes a long way. A big part of being a human being, I guess. Got me the job. And the next day, I was the assistant engineer on Michael Jackson's Off the Wall album. I sat behind Quincy Jones and a guy named Bruce Minn, who I had met in Chicago. And I was a hot assistant, I paid total attention. I wanted to be there. You guys know what that dedication is. And when Bruce Lee set up a microphone and he was twisting a knob, I was behind him in my ear and my heart and my soul was with everything that he was doing. When Quincy said something, was working on an arrangement, my ear and my heart and my soul was on it. I was on it. I was on it. And they got that. And they liked me. And I'm a little goofy and kind of funny, and got a nickname from Quincy, Big Julie. To this day, hey, Big Julie. People ask me, where do you get Big Julie? Well, there's a deli across the street called Big Julie's. Hey, Big Julie. But because of that, I got kind of a PhD sitting behind some guys that were masters at what they did. And I got to hear what great music sounded like, what great arrangements sounded like, what great recordings sounded like, what people that were mentally competent acted like. And that becomes part of your DNA. So I got to work with more people. And it doesn't happen overnight. I spent 6 or 8, I think 8 years sitting behind them and being, assisting them and sitting behind Quincy and Bruce. And meeting a lot of artists from Lena Horne to Sinatra to Rufus and Chaka Khan to, all the great artists that were coming through there. And it came in my pores, it became part of me. And slowly, you start doing that, and then you get a call. In the particular studio I worked at, when there were sessions, you could go and bring artists in and go work with them. So we'd work all day, maybe till about 10 o'clock at night, then I'd go out to clubs, and if there were bands that I liked, I'd invite them down to the studio, and we would start at midnight or 1 in the morning, and record and try things until 7 or 8 in the morning, when I'd have to start again with working. And I did that for years. And I was never tired because I was so jazzed on being there and doing that. And maybe you'd get a call to record a vocal, and then maybe you were assisting and the engineer didn't show up, and you got to record some drums or a guitar, and you prove yourself, you work along the way, and you work along the way. And eventually, I was working for an engineer, a great engineer, a guy named Mick Gazowski, who did all Mariah Carey's records. And he got too busy. He had a client in New York, a jingle client that would come to California for 2 weeks a month. And Mick now was too busy to work for him, and he recommended me, and they hired me. And when you're doing jingles, you work fast, and you're making 30 seconds of music, and you get about 5 minutes to set up a band or an orchestra. Let's go, go, go. And I said yes to it, and I really probably wasn't qualified yet. The same way I'm not qualified to be speaking to you guys, probably. But I said yes, and I scared myself, but I did it, and I did it for a number of years. And I got good at it. And one day you're recording a polka, the next day you're recording an orchestra, the next day you're recording a jazz combo, the next day you're recording a banjo group, the next day you're recording a rock band, and you're moving fast, and you get a big background of different styles of music and moving fast. So one day, you never know when the phone is going to ring, and it's all about, no one's coming over to your apartment or your house to hire you for anything. You need to be out in the world and saying yes to everything, And because I did that, one day the phone rings, and hey, Ed, this is Ry Cooder. I don't know if you know who Ry Cooder is. Ry Cooder's a slide guitar player. He's kind of he's an American treasure. He's very famous, a lot of film scores and things like that. Wonderful musician and a groundbreaking musician. Hey Ed, I just got hired to do this commercial, and some people recommended you that you were young and you would kind of get what I'm doing, and I think it was for Delco or something like that. And he hired me to do a commercial. He'd never done a commercial before. By that time, I knew how to do them, and we got along and we hit it off. As a matter of fact, there was a sound effect. It was a car and a block of ice, and with a Delco it would start. But I found a sound effect that it wouldn't start, so I kept driving everybody crazy, just doing the one that wouldn't start. Got a kick out of it, I guess. And he called me up, and we did it. And then about a month later, I get a call, hey, Ed, I'm doing a record. I don't know if you would you like to record it and mix it for me? Actually, he said, hey, Ed, I said, yeah. And I ended up doing a Ry Cooder record, and it was called, what the heck was it called? Get Rhythm. And it was the first record that I had done from beginning to end, every lick. And it was challenging. A drummer named Jim Keltner, I don't know if you know, but great musician, Van Dyke Parks, and it was way beyond my abilities, but I said yes anyway. And what do you got to lose, right? Did a Ry Cooder record. And because I did a Ry Cooder record, it opened up some other doors to me. And about 2 weeks after finishing it, I get a call from a guy named David Lindley. David Lindley is another virtuoso string player, played with Jackson Browne. All the great solos you hear on Jackson Browne records are David Lindley. And he had a band called El Rayo X. He said, hey Ed, I'm doing this record. Looks like you know how to record guitars. Would you be, actually he said, hey Ed, you want an album? Yeah. And I did a David Lindley, El Rayo X. I think it was called Very Greasy. And Linda Ronstadt coincidentally was producing it. She wanted to produce for some strange reason. So we did it, and we got along, had a good time, and the record came out pretty good. About 2 months after doing that, that comes out, and when you're freelance, you work, you don't, and you have to be brave. But, the phone eventually rings. And I got a call from a guy named Don Was. I don't know if you know him, he's a famous producer, he's president of Blue Note Records now. Says, hey, listen, I just got hired to produce a Bonnie Raitt record. We need an engineer, someone to record and mix it. Would you be interested? And I was, hey, yeah. But leading up to that, I knew that Bonnie Raitt was doing a record, and I had been a big fan. And I called, and I visited everyone that I knew that knew Bonnie Raitt. And bugged them, I hear Bonnie's doing this record, and I'm the perfect guy for it. And I bugged everyone. And the phone rang, I was surprised and happy, but not that surprised, because I laid the groundwork for it, and I was ready. So we went out to lunch, and they hired me to do a record, and we did this record called Nick of Time. And Bonnie had been, had an okay career. She was known, sort of, but she wasn't that big. And she got into drugs and alcohol, and she was kind of overweight. She was having a hard time. She had gotten dropped by her label, Warner Brothers, but something happened and she got sober. And we made this record for capital, not for a lot of money. I was never thinking about money, not for a minute. I was just thinking about music and studio and technology. So we did this record called Nick of Time, and out of nowhere, I went on to win about 8 Grammys and sell about 8 million records. And I think I got $10,000 to do it, which was all the money in the world to me. But in the scheme of things, not that much. So it took off, and the next day, my phone rang off the hook, and it's been ringing off the hook since then, and that was 1989. Milk that baby. But I think you have to be willing to suck. You have to hang it out there, right? And follow your heart and soul, and be willing to fail. And 1 failure, or 10 failures, or 20 failures, it's the nature of art, it's the nature of the beast, and that's just the way it is. You think it's about getting your lucky break? It's really not. I got a lucky break, but it was a series of breaks. And you can't predict in advance which break is going to be the one. So that's why I say yes to everything. Get out there, meet people, play together, meet at an opening, play at an opening of a gas station if you have to. No one's coming to your house to find you anything. And again, I think I'll leave you with that. I probably rambled on long enough. And remember, your parents do love you, they worry about you, and call them frequently.
On behalf of the faculty and the board of directors of McNally Smith College of Music, I confer upon each of you who has completed the necessary coursework and fulfilled all requirements the degree of Bachelor of Music, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, Associate of Applied Science, or diploma with all the honors and privileges thereto. Congratulations.